Hey, good morning, everyone. I guess afternoon on the East Coast. Welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. We want to welcome again with us here live Liz Oyer, former pardon attorney for the Department of Justice. Thanks for being with us, Liz.
Thanks for having me back.
It's good to have you back, and nothing ever happens. I don't know why we need to have you back.
Yeah, it's going to be so hard to find something to talk about, not the 10 pages of questions I have written for you.
It's almost impossible to keep up with what's going on this week.
It really
and
is.
Generally, yeah.
It really is. Okay, so we are going to do just a quick headline here. I want to talk about some stuff that's happening. We're going to do some more at the end, but I do want to say that there's a little bit of caution heading into the weekend in Minneapolis. They're preparing for a large presence of right-wing demonstrators this weekend. There's a conservative influencer who's planned what he's calling the March Against Minnesota Fraud. And so there's worry that there's going to be targeted attacks on the Somali community. And meanwhile, the Star Tribune is reporting many complaints of heightened aggression here from ICE agents on the streets. I've seen tons of videos. I'm hearing a lot of stories from my friends who live in Minneapolis, but I just want to play a few examples and then we'll talk to Liz on the other side about this. Here's a few.
I'm trying. Listen. Have y'all not learned from the past couple of days? Have you not learned?
Learned what? What's our lesson here? What do you want us to learn?
Following federal agents.
Give me my phone back.
Okay, so those are a couple. There are some more that are even harder to watch. Just want to get both of your kind of takes on what we're seeing there in the United States.
You want to go first, Liz? Or you want me to go? It's your call.
You go. You go.
I think that what's going on in Minnesota right now, and I feel is bad for all law enforcement because these guys are out of control. They're out of control. They haven't been well trained. They think they're above God, and they think they can do any damn thing they want. Tell you what that video reminds me of. The first one reminds me of the January 6th stuff when the people broke the windows out of the Capitol and ran into the Capitol, and they had to bring in the guard to put them down. That isn't where this is happening. This is happening on these folks' streets where they live, their homes. People are coming in and pushing them on the ground for what they're saying. Why? Because they don't want to hear the truth. And the truth is that this is not America. And the only people that are happy about what's going on right now are Putin and Xi Jinping. And unless Kristi Noem and the President of the United States wake up and understand that this country is about freedom and privacy, and this is not America. Of course, maybe this isn't the America they want, and that their supporters understand that they're next. This is going to continue.
I agree. And I think that what has made it so bad is the fact that so many high-level government officials are giving permission to these agents. They're inviting them to behave in this way. We are hearing messages from the very highest levels of our government saying that this is okay. We heard J.D. Vance right after the killing of Renee Good say essentially that she brought it on herself, that she deserved to die because of the way she behaved. Then we heard Stephen Miller say that ICE agents have immunity. He invited them to continue to behave like this. We heard J.D. Vance say they have absolute immunity, which is false. But all of the messaging from the top down is that this behavior is okay. And that really emboldens it to continue. And that it just makes everything more fraught and worse, frankly.
Yeah. And the whole time, excuse me, Maritza, and the whole time Congress, our Article 1 of the Constitution, the legislative branch, crickets.
Yeah, we've been kind of talking about that. I think that I think the people I'm really paying attention to are the Republican members of Congress who aren't saying anything about what's happening in Minneapolis. I mean, this is the topic. You go to any major news site right now, this is what's being reported. So Liz, I mean, there's a lot that we want to talk to you about because of your time with the DOJ. You just released this video about Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche saying basically they're not going to investigate the killing of Renee Good. And you talked about him using the term insurrection. And then just hours after that, we see the president threaten the Insurrection Act. So my question for you is, if we see that happen, what does that look like? If I'm on the ground in Minnesota, what would that look like from where you're sitting?
Yeah, so one of the most upsetting things for me as somebody who has worked in the justice system for a long time, including at the Department of Justice, is to see that the leadership from the top down, led by Todd Blanche, has sort of flipped our thinking on its head. And now he is casting the leaders, the elected leaders in Minnesota, as the criminals, and those committing violence in the name of the president as the good guys. And that's reflected in this tweet that he did this week, where he said that Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, are being viewed by the administration as terrorists, and they are focused on getting them. So that's really chilling. First of all, that he's looking at the elected leaders of Minnesota and Minneapolis as criminals who should be investigated and prosecuted, instead of the police officer who we saw on video kill this woman. And it's chilling that he has, without even conducting an investigation, decided that there's no prosecution by the Justice Department that is warranted here. The Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department has been entrusted for many, many decades with enforcing the nation's criminal civil rights laws. So laws that prohibit law enforcement officers, state and federal, from violating the constitutional rights of citizens when they carry out their duties. That includes the use of excessive force. A police officer's use of excessive force in carrying out their duties is a federal crime. And the Justice Department, in general, has for decades carefully investigated high-profile incidents about use of force to determine whether charges should be brought. And the reason for that is, in part, to get accountability for victims of crimes, but also to have a deterrent effect on future abuses by law enforcement. We should all, as Americans, want law enforcement officers to keep us safe, but to do so while protecting our constitutional rights and the rights of our fellow citizens. We don't want an out-of-control police force. We want police who respect our constitutional rights and perform their duties at the same time. But here, Todd Blanche has said that the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division will not investigate the murder, the killing of Renee Good, and that they're not going to investigate the ICE officer who killed her, period, full stop, the end. He gave no explanation. He simply announced that, and we've seen since that announcement a whole bunch of prosecutors in the Civil Rights Division resign their positions in the wake of this decision that they will not perform their statutory duty of investigating this officer.
There's a lot to pull on there. Yeah, I saw this video going around, and I haven't had time to dig into it, whether it was an authentic video, but I saw a video of a tow truck on a Minneapolis interstate towing what looked like Renee Good's car, just window down, not protected at all, not wrapped up, just floating around on the highway. And then this came out this morning, and I want to put this up. This is from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, and it said that according to this fire department incident report, that she was found with gunshot wounds to the chest, arm, and head after that immigration officer shot her on January 7th. Paramedics found Good unresponsive in her car with blood on her face and torso at 9:42 a.m. She was not breathing, and her pulse was, quote, inconsistent and irregular. That's according to the report obtained through a State Data Practices Act request. Of course, this was in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune this morning. So you all remember the videos and the amount of time that lapsed before any medical treatment arrived. What is your initial thought, Liz, when you see this and we hear that there will be no federal investigation, and we hear the extent of her injuries according to the fire department?
It makes it look like the Justice Department is complicit in a cover-up, frankly. We should all want the truth. The role of the Justice Department, it's not necessarily to prosecute, but it's to get to the truth. It's to figure out what exactly happened and to decide whether a prosecution is warranted. The fact that the Justice Department won't even conduct the investigation suggests that they do not want the truth to get out. And it's even beyond them not investigating. The federal authorities who are on the scene are blocking state investigators from getting in there and accessing the evidence, it's hard to know if we will even have a complete investigative record at the end of the day. It is incredibly important right after an incident like this occurs that law enforcement gets in there and collects and preserves the evidence from the crime scene, as well as the statements of witnesses who are on the scene. But we already saw on video that, cars of ICE agents were driving off the scene right after this shooting happened, which is problematic in and of itself. If the Justice Department isn't investigating and they're not allowing state authorities to investigate, they're obstructing the ability to have a full and fair airing of what happened here.
So, which may be the intent to begin with.
Yeah.
So the question is you don't have the feds. They said they're not going to do anything. They're preventing the state from doing any investigation. Is there anybody else, or is that it?
Well, the state can potentially try to bring charges here and they can try to investigate, but it's very difficult to do that without the cooperation of the federal government. If the federal government prevents the state from accessing the witnesses and accessing the physical evidence as well as the electronic evidence, they may not have the evidence that they need to consider a prosecution. And even if the state decides to go ahead with a prosecution, there are some uphill battles because of a legal doctrine that's called supremacy clause immunity, which limits the ability of state courts to prosecute federal officers.
Well, let me ask you this: Can Congress play any role in overruling the person who said that he wasn't going to do any investigation? Blanche. Can Congress do anything to overrule that decision by Todd Blanche? Can they say, you know what, we don't go along with this, and can they pass a bill or something that would force it?
In theory, yes, but to do so now, I'm not sure. It may be too late, really, is the answer. It may be too late for Congress to salvage this situation.
I mean,
my hope is that this will motivate Congress to think about how it can prevent this from happening in the future.
But it's already happened again. I mean, I don't know what happened last night, but night before last, some people got shot. Right? Am I right on that?
Yeah. There was another shooting that night. A lot of people, Liz, talk to us about being sick of calling their elected members of Congress and just getting canned responses that don't actually address their concerns. But you put out a new call to action to actually have people call Todd Blanche and ask him to investigate. Yeah. Do you think this could be effective? And then, my red flag that goes up is I'm not a crime scene expert, but I've watched enough Law and Order SVU to know that you need to preserve evidence in a secure crime scene. And so even if he says, okay, yeah, we'll investigate, has it been too tampered with to even have like a proper investigation at this point?
Yeah, that's a very real concern. They've got to recover all the digital evidence, for example, before it's deleted or disappears. So there were lots of people with cell phones recording on the scene there. And if they don't promptly collect all of that footage and preserve it, it may disappear. It may no longer exist. The same with physical evidence from the officer who was on the scene who did the shooting, as well as other officers. It's just not clear that that can be recovered at this point if it was not promptly recovered afterwards. And the issue is, a future administration in theory could decide to prosecute this guy. A next president could decide to initiate a prosecution. But if the evidence isn't there to support the prosecution, the defense will make a huge deal out of this. They'll have evidence thrown out. They'll get the charges dismissed because the investigation was not conducted properly, and that will be a barrier to any future accountability. Interestingly, there's no statute of limitations for a violation of civil rights resulting in death. So this could be, this could be a live case for a very long time. But what happens right now is of critical importance to determining whether there's actually a viable case in the future.
Just curious, did Todd Blanche say they're not going to be investigating because they didn't have the staff to investigate, or just said he's watched the video and there's no problem?
He didn't even say that. He said one sentence: there's no basis to conduct a criminal civil rights investigation. Period. Full stop.
A person died, right? Isn't that correct? What kind of
Yes.
basis do you have to have an investigation if the bar of a person dying isn't high enough?
It's absolutely unsupportable, the decision not to investigate. I'm not saying that, they should jump to the conclusion that charges are warranted, but there is no basis to say that an investigation shouldn't be conducted.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, let the process work. Let something like what do they call that? Due process.
Yeah, that's what they call it. Yep.
Oh, okay. So you talked about this a little bit, Liz, but we learned that several federal prosecutors, career prosecutors, left their jobs, not only because of basically the decision to forego any investigation into this killing, but also the push to investigate Renee Good's wife. So I want to hear from you the pros and cons, because we've had this debate too around even just guardrails within the administration, right? Like, is it better for people to leave and stand up for their conscience, or to stay in there so there are guardrails? Like, what are the pros and cons about people leaving?
Yeah, that's a really tough and personal decision. We've seen two sort of different groups of prosecutors quit over the last week. One is the group of people in the Civil Rights Division who quit because they were not being permitted to investigate. The other is a group of prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota. So the ones essentially on the scene who were instructed to investigate Renee Good's widow. And that is just a shocking instruction for prosecutors to receive. If even if there is some criminal background there that merits investigation for some separate reason, it has absolutely nothing to do with what happened in this shooting. I mean, the criminal background of her widow could not possibly justify this act in any way, so it is completely irrelevant. And some people in that office were just so shocked and offended that they walked away from their jobs. And really interesting to note is that one of those people was the number two in command in the office, who was actually in charge of this massive fraud investigation that Donald Trump has been touting in the state of Minnesota. But he walked away over this instruction, this corrupt instruction that was given in the Renee Good killing case. It is not an easy decision for a prosecutor to walk away from their job. And in part, that's because you know that your work is important, and if you're not there to do it, either it won't get done, or someone else may step in who is coming at it from a corrupt perspective and do it differently. But you have to make a personal decision about whether you're doing more harm or good by staying in that job. And these prosecutors reached the conclusion that by staying in those roles, they would be doing more harm than good. And so they walked away from those jobs. And I have to respect that decision. As a lawyer, as a citizen, you cannot allow yourself to be used as a pawn in an unethical or illegal political agenda. You can't be complicit in the abuse of our justice system. I think that it's a real loss for the Justice Department that these people of ethics and conscience are leaving, but it also sends a strong message to Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi and to our fellow citizens that those prosecutors are not going to be complicit in the abuse of our system of justice.
And I mean, lawyers got rules, right? I mean, they can be disbarred for
Yeah.
this kind of stuff if they do it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That may go into the equation too. Who do you think they're going to be replaced by?
Well, I think that most of them won't be replaced. The Civil Rights Division has already lost over half of its lawyers since Trump came back into office, and they just simply have not been able to find people to replace them. But the prosecutors in Minnesota actually represent a significant portion of the staff of that office. It's an office that only normally has 70 prosecutors, and they lost 6, so almost 10% of their workforce. What I've been reading is that they're now looking to military lawyers to replace those folks. They're bringing in people who are JAG lawyers who really don't have experience in civilian courts as a stopgap to fill in those positions because they need bodies. And that obviously is problematic to have untrained lawyers whose background is not in federal criminal law occupying those important roles.
Like having untrained ICE officers on the streets.
Took the words right out.
So, I mean, last time you were here, Liz, with us, you talked about 5,000 attorneys alone had already left the DOJ.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, what's the domino effect here? Like if all of a sudden these lawyers keep leaving, they can't fill them, and for a president who says he's about law and order, what could play out?
Well, it's sort of a double-edged sword because we lose people who have the ability to prosecute righteous cases, but it also makes it harder for the administration to do the bad stuff that they're trying to do. We saw in a very different scenario, we saw in Virginia, a number of federal prosecutors resigned or were fired over their refusal to seek charges against James Comey. The president had essentially instructed Pam Bondi to get an indictment of James Comey, and these career prosecutors were unwilling to do that because they didn't think there was a factual or legal basis to charge him. And so they walked away from those jobs. Trump tried to bring in a political loyalist to get the indictment, somebody who had no relevant experience but was willing to do the president's bidding. She initially got an indictment, but the matter was badly mishandled in many ways, and a court eventually threw out the case. So that's an example of the system working when good people refuse to allow their roles to be corrupted or misused. But it does create a real deficit in terms of how does the Justice Department continue to carry out its important work, its necessary work.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this all started a bit ago with Elon Musk going through and just arbitrarily trashing agencies based on what he used, corruption, and it wasn't that. It was waste, fraud, and abuse.
Fraud, waste, and abuse. Yeah,
that's it.
Right.
And now a lot of those agencies can't respond to folks who have challenges out there, and now we're seeing it in just about every other agency too. It's not good. It's not good for people's trust in government, but that's maybe what they want.
It's absolutely not. And it's also very unprincipled. It's, we've seen Donald Trump pardon people who have committed some massively large crimes involving fraud, waste, and abuse at the exact same time as he's claiming he's cracking down on fraud, waste, and abuse. So he's sort of undercutting the work of the Justice Department at the same time. It's very unprincipled.
So what you're saying is when you pick up the president of Venezuela because of drugs and you pardon the president of Honduras who's doing the same thing, that's hypocrisy. Is that what you're saying?
It is, yes, yeah, and it's just really hard to understand what the thinking is there. I don't even have a theory, frankly, as to like who advised the president that was a good idea. Did anybody tell him it was a good idea? Did he just, decide on a whim? It's very unclear what's actually happening, but I think that what we know is that the ordinary process where the Justice Department has some independence from the president is not functioning here. The Justice Department is there to serve the president's whims, and that is something that fundamentally erodes the credibility of the work of that important agency.
Indeed, it does. And no longer can you say that the Department of Justice is America's, law firm. It's the president's law firm. And by
Absolutely.
the way, I think if you asked them, they would admit that. By the way.
Pam Bondi has essentially said that. She wrote a memo to the workforce. I was still at the Justice Department when we got this memo saying, you are all the president's lawyers. And, I had never thought of my role as at the Justice Department as to be the lawyer for the president. I was a lawyer for the United States. My job was to serve my fellow citizens. But Pam Bondi immediately set a different tone and let us know that we're all working for Donald Trump.
Probably wouldn't have taken the job if he'd have known that, huh?
Well, in some ways, getting fired from that role 7 weeks into it was a relief because every day became less and less tenable to stay there and continue to do good work. And I didn't want to quit. I didn't want to walk away because, like some of these prosecutors who are struggling with the decision, I wanted to continue to be a force of good inside the Justice Department for as long as I could. And when that decision was taken out of my hands because I got fired, that was honestly something of a relief on some level.
So let me ask you, there's so much, right, going around, and there's a lot of misinformation, misconceptions going around. And I'm seeing it not only repeated by ICE officers in some of these videos, but also from our leaders in our nation's capital. So can we do just some like rapid fire questions, like on legal grounds, for you to clear it up for us?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it illegal to film a federal officer on a public street?
It is not illegal to film the officer, but it is important to respect boundaries and not obstruct the work of the officers. So if you see the officers doing something that you believe violates another citizen's rights, you can film it from a distance, but you cannot interfere because you could be prosecuted for that yourself. And frankly, that's what they want, right? They want to provoke violent resistance to these officers so that they can maybe down the road invoke the Insurrection Act, send in federal troops, take over Minnesota with the military. So it's really important for citizens who are upset and outraged about what's going on to express their unhappiness peacefully and without interfering physically with what ICE is doing.
Okay, the vice president said that these ICE officers have absolute immunity. True or false?
That is absolutely false. ICE officers do not have absolute immunity from prosecution, but we need somebody to step forward and decide that they're going to hold them accountable, and that's what's lacking right now.
Yeah, might I add, and you can comment on this, if the Department of Justice says they're not going to prosecute, I guess they might have absolute immunity, right?
So, as I mentioned earlier, in theory, in the future, the Justice Department could change its mind and try to prosecute some of these officers down the road if there's an evidentiary basis at that point to do it. Another concern is that Trump could pardon all these folks before he leaves office. He could grant a blanket pardon for ICE officers, and that would also mean that they don't have, any accountability. And I think it's possible that when JD Vance and Stephen Miller say ICE officers have immunity, what they're telegraphing is, yeah, we've got your back, and
Do what you want.
you'll get a pardon at the end of this. So do what you want now. Do what you need.
But let me just clear up. A pardon would be just for federal charges, right? So if the state filed charges later, that would be separate.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The state could potentially bring charges later, and that's why it's so important that we have an investigation now so that the evidence gets preserved.
Okay, I've heard this one a lot because I've seen not only U.S. citizens detained or pulled out of cars or thrown to the ground, but I do wonder, do ICE agents have jurisdiction or authority over legal U.S. citizens?
So they have the ability to detain people briefly to ask them questions to determine their citizenship status if they have reasonable suspicion to believe that they may not be in the country legally. That is a question that the Supreme Court weighed in on a couple months ago, and the decision that was written by Justice Kavanaugh on that issue was really upsetting, actually, because it essentially licensed ICE to use things like speaking a different language and your profession, your perceived profession. Like if you look like somebody who might be working as a day laborer or in construction, those are things that Justice Kavanaugh said could give ICE agents reasonable suspicion to stop you and briefly detain you to determine your citizenship. You could be standing on a corner speaking Spanish, and that could be enough to be harassed and questioned by ICE.
Does the term briefly have a definition?
Well, not a very concrete or tangible definition. In theory, the officer should be able to detain you for only as much time as it requires to ascertain that you have legal status in the country. If you don't have documentation on you that readily proves that, that could significantly prolong the encounter. Also, if ICE claims that you're in any way threatening them or resisting, they can potentially separately detain you on that basis. So there are a lot of ways that they can extend the duration of these stops.
Okay, can ICE officers order you out of your car?
They can order you out of your car if they believe that there is a safety reason that they need to do that. And whether that's true or not, and, when you unpack it all in hindsight, really isn't relevant. It's sort of, them saying, I feel like I need to pull you out of your car is probably enough that they can. And, whether or not that should be allowed, I would strongly advise my fellow citizens to comply with those types of directions from ICE officers, because we have seen what can happen to people if you don't comply, and it is not worth getting killed over.
And the last quote unquote rapid fire question I have is this has come up a lot, but do I have to show proof of citizenship if somebody with a mask who doesn't show me identification asks for it?
Unfortunately, the answer is yes. If ICE has reasonable suspicion to believe that you might be an undocumented person, they can require you to show proof of your citizenship. And it doesn't feel right to many of us, especially because, how do you know somebody's really an ICE agent and not a random person wearing a mask who's trying to terrorize you? Some states have tried to eliminate the masking requirement for ICE officers, but because they are federal agents, states don't really have the ability to crack down on that. And, it's very scary to think about what could happen, but the state of play is that you do have to comply with these officers. And I hope that folks, realize that the stakes of not doing that can be extremely high.
What constitutes proof of citizenship? Is it a driver's license? Do I have to show my birth certificate? What constitutes citizenship?
Well, you don't have to have proof of citizenship necessarily, but you do have to be able to demonstrate that you're in the country lawfully. Otherwise, ICE can detain you until they can verify your lawful status, and that can take a great deal of time.
But what
If you
constitutes?
don't have a document. So if you're here, let's say.
What document? Sorry,
If you're,
Go ahead.
If you're a citizen, yeah, your passport, birth certificate, all those types of things. But if you are not a U.S. citizen, but you're in the country on a work visa or a student visa, or you have lawful permission to be here, you probably want to have that document on you at all times so that you can show it to ICE. We've heard stories of people being detained for weeks before their status can be verified.
So just because paranoid, what if they came up to me and I showed them my Montana driver's license? Would that be proof enough?
Well, frankly, they're not going to come after you because.
No, I disagree with that. I really do disagree with that. I said they just shot a U.S. citizen woman that looked pretty damn white. She looked pretty damn.
I'm not saying they're not going to shoot you. I'm saying they're not going to question your citizenship status.
Well, I was just wondering because I don't always carry my driver's license with me, and I'm not sure it would do any good. I just wonder if they happen to see me walk down the street and pick a town in Montana and say, "I want proof that you're a citizen," unless I have my passport with me, which I seldom carry.
Yeah,
right. Because we don't want to lose it.
What do I need to produce?
Well, if they are genuinely questioning your citizenship and they want proof of it, if you can't produce your passport or your birth certificate, then you're probably going to end up locked up in a cell until they can somehow verify that you're a U.S. citizen.
I feel like
then they're going to have to call Maritza, and she's going to have to vouch for you.
I'm not asking for trouble. I mean, the truth is what I saw in Minnesota on the 7th. If that doesn't shake everybody to their soul, where a woman says, "I'm not angry at you," and obviously is leaving, and that was cause for shooting her in the face at point blank range, I think these guys are capable of anything. I think they're capable of anything, especially when one of them, I don't know if it was a shooter or another one, calls them bitch right after she gets shot. I mean, I'll tell you, I butchered beef for 20 years. And I had a cow. They busted one of my fences. They dropped it off here for me to butcher. Could have butchered one, but they didn't. They went through 7 of my fences. And when I shot that beef, I remember saying, "You son of a bitch." Okay? This is the same kind of stuff, only this is a human being. This is a human being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's the most damning part of the whole encounter because it suggests what the state of mind of that officer was. It doesn't suggest that he was scared for his life. It suggested that he did not like this person and he decided to shoot her.
He was angry.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you make a good point, Senator. You make a good point, a very good point. I just, I have a lot of viewer questions for you, Liz.
Maurice, are you taping this? Because I want to keep that. Just this chunk of the tape where you said
When
that
I,
was a very good point. I want to keep that. Okay.
well, I will tape it. I will post it. I will pin it to all of the social media channels. Yes, you make a good point.
Thank you.
You're not right.
I thought it was a good point too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There you go.
Thanks, Liz. I appreciate that. At this moment in time, I need something for my ego, so that's good.
Okay, so a lot of the questions that people sent us about what to ask you really revolves around what do we do? What do we do? What's the best thing we can do? And we did have a comment in our chat here live on Substack that says, we all see the problem. What's the solution? We don't want to give the president a way to foment more violence as a pretext for grabbing more power. We need to be smarter and more strategic. So what does that look like?
Well, I don't think that there is a simple solution, but I was really moved by something that Senator Alyssa Slotkin said the other day. She said that the most patriotic thing we can do right now is to speak up against the abuse of power. It's scary to speak up, but it is not the time to give in to our fears. We have to continue to do that. We have to do it peacefully, and we have to do it without making threats, because that's when we lose the high ground, and that's when we invite more troops, more, the Insurrection Act to be invoked, those sorts of things. So it's important that we maintain the high ground, but it's important that we stay loud and that we speak up. One thing that I've been trying to do is suggest, who can people call or write to other than their elected reps? And I've tried to mobilize a couple of campaigns to reach out to Justice Department officials. I posted, I believe it was just yesterday on my social media, a phone number for Todd Blanche's office, as well as an email address for Todd Blanche at the Department of Justice, and urged people to call and write to make their opinions heard. Within a few hours, the Justice Department appears to have shut down both the phone line and the email address.
Really?
So, so the communications are no longer going through, but I think we made our point.
Are those, I assume that they're publicly available, correct? The email and phone number?
Yeah. So they're not the number for the Justice Department's comment line. You can find these things if you look, but if you look on the Justice Department website, you'll find a general public mailbox that you can call to leave a comment. I wanted to try to find a way to make sure that these messages were actually getting to the leadership in a way that couldn't just simply be ignored by stuffing them in a drawer somewhere. And it sounds like the messages were received, and now they're not taking any more messages.
I was going to put the phone number up, but it's not even worth it.
Yeah. I mean, the number is shut down. There still is a number that you can call to get a general mailbox and leave a message, and there's no harm in doing that. I also shared earlier a phone number for the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, where you can call and ask the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights to do an investigation. She has been posting on social media. She had a post that I thought was kind of hysterical, where she said that her neighbors in Sonoma have been fantasizing about confronting her in restaurants and at the supermarket about what she's doing, and she doesn't like that. And I mean, I guess she lives in Sonoma. That sounds fancy. I'm sorry that she can't go to the supermarket, maybe not sorry, without people telling her that she's failing at her job, but she is. And, people need to hear that. They need to not be able to stick their head in the sand and ignore it. They need to hear it directly from their fellow citizens, peacefully and without any threats.
That's 100% correct. But part of this is just like shutting down the email line and the phone line. We're seeing it with elected representatives all over this country, where they don't do public meetings. They don't go out and take input from their constituents. They're not representing their constituents, and they don't want to hear anything that's different from exactly what they're doing. And it's really contrary to democracy. And it's not the reason you run to be a public servant in Washington, D.C., or at the state level, or at the county level, or at the municipality level. It just doesn't make any sense.
I am going to put this number up for the Civil Rights Office. So if you are listening to this, I will read it. This is when you pause the podcast and get a pen. The number is 202-514-3847. And thank you, Liz, for putting that up on your information. So My last question for you. I know it's a busy morning, but you basically posted something as we went into the new year, and as you look ahead, kind of what you're going to be focused on. And I know you're already just inundated with requests about what to do about the situation in Minneapolis. Also, I'm assuming more pardons are coming down. We've had the investigation of the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, coming down. We've had the FBI raid of Washington Post journalist's home. But when you look ahead to the next year, you said you're going to be focused on seeking accountability from our leaders. So tell us what that looks like, what that project looks like, and how can people get involved and join your cause?
Well, accountability is holding people responsible for the decisions that they make, and that requires us to demand answers from our leaders. It's not enough to ask the questions, we have to ask them and get answers. And that's why I think direct communications like calling Todd Blanche's office and emailing him are useful, as opposed to leaving a message in a general mailbox, because we need to get answers. We need to make justify their decisions that they are making. And one of the things that I think is really the most valuable thing that we as citizens can do is talk to somebody who doesn't already agree with you and tell them what you think and why you think it, in a way that doesn't judge them, doesn't attack them, but that they can hear and have a discussion about it. We need to start talking to other people who don't already agree with us. We need to get out of our echo chambers that many of us are in, where we only talk with people who already agree with us, and we share messages that are, it's like recirculated air. The same message is going around and around again, and people are already believe what you're saying or hearing it again and again. We need to branch out, talk to other people, restore civil dialogue, and get our elected leaders to respond to us in that way, rather than further pushing everyone into their corners where they're dug into these extreme positions. So I don't have the whole roadmap yet. It's a good question, but my focus is really going to be on calling out these individual elected leaders and trying to reach people who don't already agree with me, calling out the leadership of the Justice Department about the decisions they're making, and just trying to get them to have to explain themselves to the citizens who they serve. I think that people like Todd Blanche have completely forgotten that they serve the American people. Their salary is paid out of our taxpayer dollars. They're there in that building to serve all of us, not to serve Donald Trump.
Senator, it sounds like she's going to do the job of Congress.
Yeah, good luck. You're probably more efficient than all 100 in the Senate anyway. Yeah. By the way, have you ever been in front of a committee in the Senate to have people fire questions at you?
I testified in front of a panel of Democrats. There
Oh,
was
yeah?
no Republicans. Questions were all friendly. So, it was actually
Well,
really disappointing to me that one time I had the opportunity to do that there was no one from the Republican Party there, because I think that most of the issues that we should be talking about are ones that should be of bipartisan concern.
Absolutely should be a bipartisan concern. Exactly. Liz, I just want to say thank you for what you do. It is indeed a pleasure for both of us to have somebody like you on this podcast. We appreciate what you're doing. We appreciate your perspective, and just thanks for being Liz Oyer.
Thanks. I really appreciated the opportunity to chat with you both.
I just want to ask, though, a clarifying question here. Were you asking that because you think she would just kill a Senate hearing? Yeah.
I think she would be incredibly effective in front of a Judiciary Committee, talking about what she did and the challenges she sees and why things aren't going to work if they continue down this path. And unfortunately, I do not know why this is partisan. I always thought that freedom and privacy and due process and all that stuff was a bipartisan issue that I thought all people were fighting for. But my God, I mean, this isn't a Republican Party that my parents would recognize or my in-laws would recognize. I guarantee it. It's not about freedom. It's not about privacy. It's not about making sure that we're not wasting money. It's not about family values. It's a different Republican Party. And that's why, by the way, as long as I'm on this rant, that's why if people are smart this next election, they'll give those disenfranchised Republicans and disenfranchised Democrats a place to land because they're looking for a place to land.
I will
I think
continue
that's
to
why
embarrass
it's so
you.
important that we have this dialogue that crosses lines. We really need to make more of an effort to talk across party lines, talk with people who don't already agree with us so that we can find a landing place together. I think that Trump has really just polarized people so much. He has pushed people into extreme points of view that they've adopted for self-preservation reasons, not because they truly believe them. I don't think that Todd Blanche genuinely believes half the things that come out of his mouth. I think he's adopted those views because he's adopted the role of Donald Trump's lawyer. And that's a problem. He's, does no longer views himself as a lawyer for the American people. And that's a fundamental problem.
Yeah, the fact that he's not going to investigate a U.S. citizen who got shot in the head 3 times at point blank range by a person who's paid for by the American taxpayer, that's a problem.
Yep.
One more thing to embarrass Liz. What you laid out, Senator, is why so many people are following her and really love and share her videos, because she is, sorry, Liz, I don't mean to talk about you like you're not here, but you're effective, you're informative, you're calming,
Thanks.
you are succinct in your answers, and they're really clear. And we need that, and we appreciate that. And I'll just say, like, I think you could run for office. I'm just going to say that.
and what she's also saying, Liz, is you're everything that we're not.
We're not. Yeah.
I don't think that at all. You guys are awesome. I really enjoy talking with both of you. I live in Washington, D.C., so running for office would mean running for local office. And those are important offices too. But,
I am still
not going to have
confident.
the opportunity to get on any Senate committees.
At one point in time, DC will have representation in Congress, voting representation. So you better get ready to file your papers. That's all I'm going to tell you.
We appreciate you so much, Liz. I hope you'll come back soon and join us. Like, we could just talk to you forever.
Absolutely. Invite me back anytime. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you both.
All right. Thanks, Liz.
Bye.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So it's just so informative. And you see, people, I see her videos everywhere. People share them everywhere because they really do help people kind of sort through what's going on.
Yeah, here's the thing I like about Liz Oyer, and I honestly, until she was on our show here a few months ago, I didn't know her from afar. But she's honest. She's straight up. She doesn't think about how to word shit to make it sound right. She just says it, and I kind of like that. That's pretty cool. It's really
I
cool.
love that. Yeah, we need more of that. Okay, I know you have a meeting in a few minutes. I did want to just let you know that there's this bipartisan congressional delegation in Denmark. Your former colleague, Senator Lisa Murkowski, said to leaders there, "I don't think you will find support in Congress to acquire Greenland find that support in Congress to acquire Greenland is in any way there, or in any way is not there." Sorry, let me say that. But new this morning, in a roundtable on rural healthcare, the president warned in a complete non sequitur that he may put a tariff on countries if they don't go along with Greenland because we need Greenland for national security. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, that's not correct. Truthfully, we have what we need in Greenland from a national security standpoint. Because things haven't changed that much since I was in the Senate. I will also tell you that Lisa Murkowski I like her. I've worked with her. I worked with her on the infrastructure bill. I like her. She's a good person. She's straight up. Truth is Alaska needs another senator like her. They'd be good. And I think they might get one. There's a lady that's running that's pretty damn good, a lot better than what they got. But that aside, I would love to believe that. But look at what's transpired in the last year that Congress has not said anything about. Cutting SNAP to feed kids, Congress didn't say anything about it. Start at the beginning, taking away USAID. USAID was not a program that senators hated. but
Right.
they haven't said a word. Took away all our soft power in the world. And by the way, China's backfilled that. So it's made China much stronger. And so it's just a list one after another. And I hope Lisa is right. But I've seen a couple, God bless Tom Tillis for standing up, but most of the others, they're sitting on their hands and not saying a word. And silence is complicity. And that's a fact. And so that's where we're at. We'll see. I mean, I think it's silly. I think it could blow up NATO. I think it could redefine the world order, but I'm not sure the president gives a damn about any of that stuff.
And here's the thing that I read, all of the concern in Europe right now is over Greenland and what's going to happen in Ukraine as everybody's focusing on Greenland. And frankly, also, let's just say it, Epstein files.
Yeah.
Epstein files.
Yeah, well, I haven't talked about those for a while, but they're still going to be there.
They'll still be there. We do have a viewer question from Wendy, who just became a subscriber, and she said that we might not like that because she's going to send us questions. And I said, no, we want your questions, Wendy. So she wants to know, in this vein, what do you think about the Republicans who say, they push back, like what we saw this last week with the War Powers resolution? 5 Republicans had voted with the Democrats to move that along, but then 2 flipped at the last minute. Like, why are we seeing that happen? Why is there just so much pressure on them to not push back?
I'm not there, so I don't know. But I can tell you that when typically they want you to flip a vote, they'll bring you into the leader's office and then they'll redo the riot act and tell you why the world's going to end if you don't change your vote. And it takes people with a pretty strong constitution to speak truth to power, and that's what you have to do in those situations. I just don't know why, because there's things that are happening that are they just go against what the USA stands for. And I'm sure they're threatened politically. I mean, I know for a fact a lot of folks say, well, we'd do something about it, but we got a primary. But what I'm here to tell those folks is that is a great job. Being a congressperson or being a senator is a great job, but it ain't the best job you ever had. If it is, then you've never lived life. And so stick up for what's right. And when you go to bed at night, you might be able to sleep, because the truth is what's going on here is bad for your kids. It's bad for our grandkids. It's bad for everybody. And there has to be an understanding of that. It's the forefathers never put politics into the equation. They never thought this was going to happen. Hell, I never thought this would ever happen, but it's happening. And until Congress speaks up, things look pretty grim. But no, I mean, look, Lisa's probably right. Talks cheap until somebody brings you into their office and starts reading you the riot act.
Yeah. And we should mention Senator Tillis is on that trip to Denmark. Okay.
Who give me, I haven't read the story. How many people are on it? Give me a clue.
11, mostly Democrats, but Murkowski and Tillis are there.
Okay, good. Well, that's good, because the truth is that, my understanding is Europe's sending troops into Greenland right now. Why? Not because of Russia, not because of China, not because of Iran or North Korea, because of the United States of America.
It's a lot to unpack. And I want to tease ahead on Monday. It is Martin Luther King Day, but we have Larry Diamond joining us. Larry Diamond is a scholar. He's an expert on democracy. He's a senior fellow in global democracy at the Freeman Spogli Institute, which former Ambassador McFaul is the leader of at this point. So we very much look forward to talking to Larry Diamond about our democracy and where it stands and what he's watching. What does your hat say, sir? It says, does that say what I think it is? Pasta Montana?
Pasta Montana, they make great noodles in Great Falls, Montana. They take durum and they turn it into food. It's good.
I need to try this. I've never tried. I brought my hat that you... No, I've never tried it. I want to say thank you to Heather Cox Richardson, because she sent us these hats, and you have one too.
I do.
So we want to thank her for sending those. We'll get those on an episode here. We thank everybody for joining us with this. Of course, we thank Liz Oyer, just an amazing guest, an amazing source for information and calm right now. And we thank her for joining us. We want to thank Pearl Jam for letting us use their music. You can find us on Substack, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube. You can shoot us an email anytime at groundedpcast@gmail.com. What are you want to say something? What do you want to say?
I just want to say to Wendy, you can ask us questions and we'll try to get to them, because we're not like the people that serve in Congress right now. We're not gonna hunker down and not do anything.
We want your questions. We want your questions. This is what this is about, is having an interactive and engaged community to talk about what's going on. So that's why we're here, and we want your questions, Wendy.
Somebody needs to answer them.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you Monday.
Tally ho.